Three, two, one. What's happening, guys? This is Logan Robinson from Hear the Spear, presented to you by NoleGameday.com. We're here live on a wonderful, fantastic Wednesday evening, hour earlier than usual, but we're still here nonetheless to get you guys prepped up for a big game this upcoming weekend between Florida State and Clemson. We weren't with you in the instant reaction of Florida State versus SMU. Not sure if anybody would really want to hear that. It's kind of starting to become repetitive of what we're having to talk about week by week. So we will make up for that in this show, beginning with our first and last thoughts to Florida State versus SMU after a blowout loss for the Seminoles over there in Dallas, welcoming SMU to the ACC. We're going to talk some presser stuff from Mike Norvell. We're going to talk DJ and his injury. We're going to talk Brock Glenn, some depth chart notes that came out. We're going to talk about Shyheim Brown and his arrest earlier this summer that was reported by War Chant. We've also going to talk a handful of things, including a commitment that was lost for the Florida State Seminoles in their 2025 class on the offensive side of the ball. An offensive lineman will miss the remainder of the 2024 season. NFL Noles, and then at the end, we're going to give us a little quick preview of Florida State versus Clemson and give our score predictions at the end of the show. But with me this evening is Austin Veazey, our lead basketball writer, and down below is Dustin Lewis, our editor-in-chief at NoleGameday.com. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
It's good to be back. It definitely feels like it's been longer than a week since the last time we were on here, obviously with FSU going through what happened over the weekend, and then the hurricane, and Logan, you being up there in Asheville and dealing with your situation, which I'm sure you'll talk a little bit about. So yeah, a lot has happened in the past 7 days, but I mean, here we are, Florida State, 1-4 on the season, going into a matchup against one of the toughest teams they'll play all year. And this is actually, going to be the mid-season mark for Florida State, their sixth game of the 2024 campaign.
And it can't get over soon enough. And whoever thought that we'd be willing for Florida State football to hurry up and get over with. Gentlemen, welcome to Brocktober. We've officially made it to the Brock Glenn era. Congratulations.
It took until October for this to happen, gentlemen.
It did. And then I also want to give a quick rest in peace to Kemi Mutombo, obviously Fiondu Kabengele's uncle, who I spent time with at Florida State. So thinking of their family right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now a lot of us already kind of looking ahead to what the Florida State basketball team can bring. And yeah, no, I was up there in Who? Florida State basketball?
Yeah, I said, are we?
Come on.
First preview article Sunday. I'll say it right now.
Get ready, D-Lou.
I can't wait.
Ready?
I cannot wait.
Thousands of words are coming your way, D-Lou. Thousands of words. But yeah, I was up there in Asheville. That's the reason why I wasn't going to be on the instant reaction to Florida State versus SMU. Was up there for one of my best friend's weddings. Sadly, that got canceled, obviously, on Friday when the storm hit. And one of the craziest experiences I've ever had to go through. In Florida, we grow up and we're in those kind of elements when you have a hurricane coming in, gentlemen, and power goes out, and sometimes 2, 3, 4 days somewhat and everything. But when you're kind of far away from home, you flew up there, and then you were in a town that definitely wasn't expecting anything of that magnitude. It's just, a lot of things get put into perspective, and a lot of people that I got to meet while up there, no internet, it's kind of like in Doe Campbell Stadium. Everybody's trying to use the internet on LTE and everything, and it never, ever works. So it was like that, but worse. SOS at the very top of your phones, couldn't message, couldn't even text anybody, couldn't use social media. Phone calls were all gone until, we were able to find some spots inside of the town that you were limited on cars, didn't have any gas, roads out of the interstates were blocked. So everyone in Asheville was contained in for over 48 hours. Plane flights were completely canceled, which a majority of us flew up there. And so, and definitely still with the whole wedding group that you had, it was, really rough to find a lot of resources to be able to feed everyone, find water. Majority of the drinks, though, was beer. So I wasn't put into a severe situation there on that end. A lot of the guys were able to drink, but a lot of FSU fans that were with me, a lot of my best friends, all FSU guys. And, we were planning to watch the SMU game after the wedding on Saturday and just, I wouldn't say enjoy maybe watching the FSU, but at least be over there, hang out, have some breweries and such. And that all got canned. And, I'm wishing the best to everybody up there that was in Asheville. Some people that went through some really, really severe things. I met a guy, Eric, that, lost his entire house. He was just out there outside the Sam's Club with his dog, and that's the only thing that he was able to save. And, him showing me a video of his house just getting taken down the river and him shaking and, just, wanting to just fall apart right there. It just breaks your heart to see that kind of stuff. And, it just puts things in perspective. I love football, I love everything. I love what we do here and such, but that all kind of goes out the window, and it's just all about survival at that point. And we're just very lucky enough to have people around us, family and friends, and then also too some very good people up there in Asheville that took care of us, went out of their way. I mean, Eric offered us a ride, took us to our Airbnb up the mountain and everything, and that's just insanity. There's some really good people out there, and good karma will definitely come up that way to Eric and the rest of his puppy, and that's all he has. So just thinking about those people. Still kind of going through it mentally on my end, but was able to gladly go back on our drive, leaving at 6 p.m. all the way down to St. Petersburg yesterday to watch Florida State versus SMU. Wasn't the most fun watch, as they haven't been. Luckily, we went by the gas station and grabbed some more beers for it because I desperately needed that. But we watched it, and I think we go ahead and jump into some last thoughts here, gentlemen. Before we get started, as always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. The show goes on, and let's keep getting after it, gentlemen. How about this game? I mean, we were getting some kind of texts here and there from family members. DJ saw 3 interceptions, Brock Glenn's in the game. That's kind of all I got there, and the score just kept on going up for SMU. But we all predicted Florida State to lose this game by a pretty decent margin. And sure enough, Florida State goes out there and they lose, and you're just seeing the same thing over and over and over again. And it's getting old. It's gotten old. And we're hearing the same things of what Mike Norvell's saying, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But I want to get y'all's thoughts, and I'll jump into some of the notes that I wrote down on my car ride back home.
Yeah, it was a tough one for Florida State. There was some early signs that, hey, maybe they would come out and this could start going in the right direction. You've got your first opening drive touchdown since the season opener against Georgia Tech, and DJ, he was throwing the ball pretty well early on. Started out 5 out of 6, but then after that first interception, just seemed like the lack of confidence and, not being able to make those decisions quick enough. That all started to get back to him again. Protection started breaking down, and I think the rest of the way started 5 out of 6, and rest of the way just goes 7 out of 24 before Brock Glenn gets in there. So I mean, the Florida State offense, a failure once again, and I think what hurts the most is your longest drive of the night doesn't even result in any points. Florida State had that 78-yard drive in the first half, get down to the goal line. You've got the 3rd and goal. You run the DJ keeper. It goes nowhere. You get back on the line and you run the DJ keeper, and it goes nowhere. So that didn't work out for FSU. And then the defense, just being on the field, and they were putting in some rough situations by those turnovers as well. It was a bad game for the Seminoles, and especially in the second half, you got to that point where FSU's defense forced a 3-and-out. They were going to get the ball back. You have a face mask penalty on the punt that puts SMU back on offense. And from there, honestly, I began to see some signs of quit from FSU. SMU drove right down the field, scored right there. I think Florida State came out through another interception. So from there, it just kind of melted down, and it seemed like the team kind of came apart a little bit. And, you got to hope that those signs of quit, they're able to get that out of the window real quickly and get this turned around for Saturday night.
Yeah, just real quick on that face mask before I give my thoughts. Was that not a weak face mask? Because if you watch the official try to explain it to Mike Norvell, he says he grabs it and then pulls it down. And then you look at the replay, it's like a wipe across the visor. And I get it, by the definition, it's probably a face mask, but it was definitely exaggerated by the officials. I'm not trying to sit here and say Florida State lost the game because of that face mask call. Absolutely not. They had horrible effort pretty much the entire second half, but it was just a weird call. You mentioned DJ starting out strong, and a lot of that was from, the RPO. They're doing a good job of freezing the second level with the RPOs, and DJ was able to throw right behind it and get big gains. I feel like in the second half, Mike never really went to that. And I might be wrong and forgetting the game because I didn't get a chance to go back and watch, but I feel like they just started to go away from what was working and they just kept digging themselves deeper and deeper in a hole. Then the effort got worse and worse. Like Conrad Hussey especially had a really bad game, just effort wise.
I want to know
and that penalty.
Yeah, the penalty was very bad on the late hit, which was absolutely stupid. It was a stupid thing to do, and I did not like the reaction from Mike Norvell, just walking down, not saying anything to him. The past couple of years, Mike Norvell is grilling him. He's up in his face, and he's letting him know, and then he's not seen another snap. I'm pretty sure he's back out there on the field.
He stayed in.
Yeah, there's no discipline from Mike Norvell on that, and that's what I'm having some worry at the moment, and we're seeing this kind of happen week by week. I didn't want to interrupt you there, VZ, but just on that because that's in my notes.
It's a good point. I mean, I think I said it last week that we've been wondering where the fire's been with Mike Norvell, and it was apparent in this game that he just doesn't have it right now. And, maybe Dustin can allude to that a little bit more in practice, but it just seems like he's not given the same effort as a coach that we've seen in the last few years, and that's disappointing. But just going back to the game itself, the rushing game was fairly disappointing outside of Toafili. Like the team finished with 63 yards rushing, 2.5 yards per carry. The passing game was disappointing, and some of those interceptions were just absolutely horrible. The pick six thrown into triple coverage when it didn't have a single chance. What are we doing, DJ? Honestly, I do hate that it's come to an injury for a quarterback change, but it's been needed for the last 3 weeks. We've been talking about it ad nauseum.
Yeah, and to your point on the rushing attack, Austin, that's now 4 times in 5 games that Florida State has failed to surpass 100 yards on the ground. And, coming into this year, that had only happened a handful of times under Mike Norvell. So, yeah, to see the failure in the rushing game, I mean, that's something that has just bogged down this entire Florida State offense because this was supposed to be a strength. And obviously they're beat up in the backfield with Roydell and Jalen Lucas out, and the offensive line has taken a step back, and they're at the point where they're getting pretty beat up as well. I will say for the DJ interception, it was a 4th down play, so I think he was just trying to get that ball out. Either way, I mean,
that's fine, but there was surely a different read other than throwing into triple coverage.
And then also the effort by some of the offensive players, trying to chase down that guy, taking it back for a pick six. Kentron and I think it was LT. They did a pretty good job, but there were some other guys loafing.
I wasn't going to say it, but since you brought it up, Omari Williams jogged the entire time, and he was the targeted player, and he's just it was bad, man.
Yeah, it's like, are you trying now? Is there just complete defeat after you go through a little bit of adversity? And that's something that Florida State has done a good job in the years past of being able to come back and battle those certain things. Bad snap from Mo affected one of the drives there for Florida State's offense. Just terrible flags too. I felt like I was back to the Willie days, just no discipline. And it makes sense when you got a guy like Conrad Hussey who continues to make, and he's made mistakes like this before this season where he's doing some silly flags. But in this case, he does it again, and there's no kind of discipline on the sideline. But that him doing that also affects the rest of the game overall. Guys just can kind of feel comfortable with what they're going to do and have penalties, and that completely hurt this team overall with just a lot of things. And I'll be honest with you, SMU came to play, man. They had some play makers. I mean, they, what they have at SMU, I think they got some guys that have some fight, some guys that want to make plays. Because I thought there was some spots where Florida State was put in a position in the secondary to make plays, but man, I mean, to me, SMU had better athletes than Florida State put on to display, and it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. I was like, holy smokes, Florida State's out here facing Georgia or something. It just wasn't even close in competition and talent, and that's sad to see because on paper, Florida State should be above and most regard in these position groups, if not all, but not even close in what we saw in Dallas.
And I would say that's another thing that's disappointing. The talent on this team it's not showing up consistently. Every now and then you get some flashes and you're like, all right, well, that's what we were supposed to see. But I mean, it's not near close enough. And, again, this defensive backfield, a unit that we expected to be a strength of this Florida State defense. And, you're seeing a lot of breakdowns. You're seeing a lot of mistakes. Third down and long, Florida State cannot get off the field. And it's kind of been the same thing now for the past 3 games. Memphis got basically whatever they wanted through the air. Florida State did beat Cal, but I mean, Cal did a pretty good job stretching the field vertically. And then you come back on this one, SMU, Kevin Jennings making just his second start of the season goes for 254 yards, and SMU also still able to put up over 200 yards on the ground. It's just not clicking for whatever reason. And you've got some really good guys in there. I mean, guys who could potentially play in the NFL. When we're talking about Azarie Thomas and Fentrell Cypress, Shyheim Brown, I mean, there is some talent there. There are guys who were on that defense last year. And, we all remember how well Florida State did against the pass last year. Only team in the country to force more incompletions than completions allowed. And, it was a real strength in 2023, but everything is kind of frayed at the seams here now, 5 games into 2024.
I really think not converting on that 3rd and 4th down with those DJU quarterback powers, which the first one was bad enough. Going right back to it on 4th down, I have never been more frustrated. I have never been more frustrated watching Florida State football.
You don't have. I feel like I'm being pranked when I watch this team. Like I'm halfway waiting for Mike Norvell to like pull off a mask and it's Ashton Kutcher or something. Like I could not believe that. I couldn't believe it.
I feel like that moment right there killed the game. Obviously, you have the hilarious camera angle on the safety with the snap over the punter's head. But if you look at the first half, it was fairly even, 14-9. The yardage was 213 to 173 in SMU's favor. Yards per play was 5.8 to 5.6. So it's still not good, but it's at least in your reach. Then the second half just lost all control. SMU outscored Florida State 28-7, outgained Florida State 245 to 112. Yards per play was 6.6 to 3.9. And you could just point right to that DJU back-to-back quarterback powers on the goal line. Why have Cam Davis? Why have all these running backs and run with DJ? I lost my mind.
I'm pretty sure that's when I woke up everybody in the car that was riding with us back home for our 12-hour trek. I'm pretty sure it was like 2:30 in the morning. I said, "What in the are you doing, Mike?" It makes zero sense to. It's not Jordan Travis anymore. I don't know what needs to go into Mike's head. You don't have Jordan Travis back there. Put Lawrence Toafili. If you're going to do something like that, put Lawrence Toafili. You had success doing an ACC championship game. Do it. You've had success with him doing that before. Don't put your 260-pound quarterback that already seems to be hurt with his legs, got the brace on. He injured his finger earlier in the game. Like, what are you doing at that?
And for what it's worth, the first one should have scored. Toafili missed a block. If he hits that block, DJ probably scores. We don't know because DJ runs slower than anybody I've ever seen play quarterback for Florida State. He should have scored. Going back to it a second time is the stupidest thing I've seen a Florida State coach do.
Damn.
Yeah. It made no sense to me because you turn it over on downs there at the goal line, got lucky getting the 2 points, and then you come out of the half and you've got the pass to Morlock that rebounds off his hands right into the SMU defender. I mean, just two catastrophic failures right there, almost back to back.
Get the. I want to say so many words,
but I will say, like in that situation, 4th down at around that 2.5 yard line, and you consider where the game is at that point. I think Florida State, you're down 14-7. I agree totally to go for it and try and get a touchdown there. Because, how many times with how we've seen this Florida State offense perform this season, how many times are you realistically going to get down there and have that chance? But to run it with DJ twice, I mean, it just makes absolutely no sense to me when you've got some playmakers across that offense that you can use. You can use them side to side, stretch something out there towards the numbers, throw something short to Malik Benson, let him cut up, like you guys have said, get it out to Lawrence Toafili in space. Like you've got some creative stuff that you can bring to the table, but that just felt like the most vanilla thing that FSU could do in the moment. And I mean, SMU absolutely shut it down.
I think whenever you have Kyle Morlock out on the field, Florida State's facing 12 people on defense. I mean, he helps them at this point. I mean, that had to have been on purpose or something. How do you not, we'll talk about the depth chart, but how do you not stop from keep putting him out on the field. I don't understand that. In high school, you do that. I would get pulled if I kept on doing that, but he's doing that week by week. And Mike's one thing is that it's going to kill him is loyalty on his coaching staff and on the players that he continues to put out on the field. And he's going to kill his career in Tallahassee if he continues to do that. I get it. It worked with previous players that had some fight and were good players, but you don't have a lot of great players like you used to, Mike. Get him out the friggin' field. Get them off the field. It's football. I don't understand how some of these players are still out there repetitively, and there's many of the players that thankfully we're not seeing out there as much anymore. But and I understand you're limited there, and you don't have a lot of guys on and some position groups, definitely at tight end. But who cares anymore? Who gives a damn? At some point, you've got to put guys on the friggin' bench. I don't like it. Does nothing at this. It does nothing. The season's shot. Get ready for 2025. We'll talk about it all for the rest of the season. But it amazes me that kid is still out there on the field. It amazes me. It amazes me.
Before I touch on that real quick, just going back to Dustin's, point of going for it on fourth down. Florida State only had 3 red zone trips the entire game. They scored on 2 of them, and one of them technically they scored from the 20-yard line. So if you don't want to count as the red zone, wouldn't blame you. SMU was there 5 times.
Yep.
Just got dominated. But Morlock should not be playing. And it was honestly hilarious that once they finally benched him after that dropped pass leading to an interception, the very first play, Landon Thomas comes in and gets a holding penalty. I'm like, this could not go worse.
And that's why we'll see Kyle Morlock more.
Yeah.
But again, like I'm fine with taking my lumps with it.
Oh no, trust me, I am too. But it was just that's how the game went.
Like, and I mean, I feel bad honestly for Kyle Morlock at this point because it just kind of feels like he's overthinking it. Maybe even he's got the yips type of situation here because you go to these practices and yesterday and today, and I mean he's out there snagging it. He had a couple tough catches,
I know,
and it's like when he gets in the moment, he gets in his head, and it's tough because Florida State, they were expecting a lot out of him, and especially early on in the preseason, he was someone that we were talking a lot about on this roster, and seemed like he could maybe be a little bit of a safety net for DJ, and I mean that just hasn't quite worked out. You look at the PFF numbers. Kyle Morlock actually leads Florida State with 4 drops on the season, and the next closest after that is
he's had a lot more than 4. There's no way.
Yeah, that's just what he's been credited with, but that's more than double any other player on the roster currently through 5 games. But yeah, I mean, like you said, Austin, Landon Thomas comes in, he does get that holding penalty, but later on, the first catch of his career goes for a touchdown, and that's more touchdowns than Kyle Morlock has scored in 19 appearances with Florida State. So, I don't want to rag on the kid, but you're at the point where this season you can't do what you wanted to do, with this team, contend for another ACC championship, have a shot at the 12-team college football playoff. There's not even really a chance anymore at the postseason, if, we're going to be honest. So if you're going to lose anyway with these veterans, these guys who are going to be gone in December, you can't really it can't get much worse if you're going to turn it over to the young guys.
You're at the point now where you got to get ready for 2025 where it's going to be all over again because you never gave any kind of experience to the young guys that are going to be playing a lot of snaps in 2025. That's the whole thing here. Going to some of the post-game stuff too from Mike Norvell, kind of saying the same things repeatedly. You were over there on Emily's podcast and y'all were talking about Mike Norvell, and she pointed out, some of the things that he's saying in the pressers just is kind of being repetitive. And you talked about too, just some certain things about the players looking good and they're prepping well. And he just continues to see something different than what he's seen on Saturdays. And that's what I want to ask you guys. Like, everything's all about the practices. Everything's all about the practice, the prep, the energy, the drive to make plays and practices Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. What about on Saturdays? Where's it at on Saturdays? At some point you've got to start grading your team off of what they do on Saturdays and who you put out there, not about what they do Monday through Friday.
Yeah, I agree. And, for whatever reason, Mike Norvell believes the team that he sees in practice isn't showing up on game day. But I mean, I also offer the point that Florida State is practicing against Florida State during these times. And, you know, when they get out there and have to face other competition, it makes them look average to the below average product that we've seen so far. So, I mean, I do agree with you. You know, what happens on Saturdays matters way more than what happens leading up through the week. But at the same time, you know, these coaches do want to see these guys take these practices seriously and, I mean, compete out there every single day. I will say, you know, in my opinion, what they did on Tuesday, I mean, was not up to the standard of how Florida State wants to operate under Mike Norvell. It wasn't a very pretty practice. There wasn't a lot of energy. The offense was not on schedule with each other. And I mean, that went from the quarterbacks missing throws to, I mean, the offensive line having some blocking breakdowns, drops from the wide receivers and tight ends. It wasn't very pretty yesterday. They did respond today out there in practice. But yeah, ultimately, what happens on game day is what matters. I mean, that's what players get dictated on. That's what coaches get dictated on, wins and losses. So, I mean, you know, at a certain point, that's what you've got to decide. But at the same time, I mean, Florida State, they also haven't went into their roster a ton yet. You know, like we've mentioned, this will be Brock Lynn's first start, first time really getting to see another quarterback out there. And, you know, Lawrence Toafili has soaked up the majority of running back snaps as of late. We talked about Kyle Morlock dominating kind of the reps there in that tight end unit. Maybe it switches a little bit going into this game, but, you know, you've got to give those other guys opportunities as well to make those plays.
Yeah, I'm hoping with a new quarterback that we see some of the guys he's worked with in practice start to see some snaps. Like, you would think last game would have been the perfect opportunity for it. You're getting blown out. Just get the young guys some reps. But, you know, Amari Williams, 7 snaps. Lloyd McCoy, 7 snaps. Cam Davis, 5 snaps. Kazeo Holmes, just 1 snap. So I would hope that some of these guys that he's built some chemistry with can start seeing the field because, you know, at this point, why are we still playing Darian Williamson or Deuce Spann or whoever? Let's see Elijah Moore. Let's see Lloyd McCoy. Let's see some of these guys on the field, especially if they've built a quarterback or built chemistry with the new quarterback who, once again, is getting thrown to the wolves.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good chat about that in a second. Mike was also in the presser saying that he was going to already go ahead and give Brock Glenn a chance after DJ's 3 interceptions. It took 3 interceptions, some really bad interceptions as well, but 3 interceptions in order to put Brock Glenn out there onto the field, which I don't even know if DJ wasn't injured. I don't believe that. I think DJ would have stayed out there and completed the game. I mean, everything has been settled that we all on here expected that DJ was going to go all the way into this Clemson game, and then maybe there would be a change, like you're saying, D-Lou. You and I and probably VZ, we don't buy that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, look at the situation. I mean, DJ, it seemed like he hurt that throwing hand on that pick 6, and you know, Mike Norvell said after the game that he was going to make the change anyway, but you know, DJ was hurt. I mean, the change was happening regardless at that point. So yeah, I mean, I don't really buy into that very much, and you know, it's just very tough. Brock Glenn gets out there in a blowout game, has a pass drop by Landon Thomas, overthrew that deep ball to Darian Williamson that could have potentially been a touchdown, and then, you know, only in there for 8 snaps, but he takes a couple of big hits as well. I mean, the offensive line gave up some pressure. One of those looked like it was going to be a short screen, and I mean, he just gets clobbered. And the thing that stood out to me is you've got Jeremiah Byers in there at right tackle, and Byers was the one who was beat on this play. And, you know, Brock Glenn gets hit, and he's on the ground, plays over, and Byers looks over there at him and then looks the other way. Doesn't even go help his quarterback up. So, I mean,
the whole line did that. It was disappointing.
It was very disappointing to see when you've got
some... I didn't get to see that in the game, but can you run that through me real quick? So Byers is out there.
Byers out there, right tackle. Florida State looked like they're trying to set up a screenplay, but it gets blown up instantly. Byers beat, Brock gets hit, he's on the ground, and Byers looks over there, sees him on the ground, and doesn't go to help him up, just kind of turns away and gets ready for the next play. So, you know, that's not what you want to see from the rest of your team, because obviously you have a young quarterback going in there, and he's going to need the pieces around him to elevate their performance if he's going to have any chance of, you know, having success on Saturday night.
Which Brock Glenn only attempted 4 passes, and he was pressured on 2 of them. Like, the offensive line, I'm surprised we haven't touched on this yet. The offensive line was not good.
I mentioned it.
I'm sorry. But, you know, like, Darius Washington finally had a decent game. at least ratings wise. PFF, I think he graded at like 85. But TJ Ferguson was bad. Bryson Estes was horrific once he got put in the game. You mentioned Mo Smith's bad snap. Jeremiah Byers had some bad reps. I don't know what's going on with this offensive line, but I think you can argue it's the single most disappointing unit on this team.
Without question. I mean, this was supposed to be one of the strengths of Florida State's roster. And, every week in the game notes, they want to boast the offensive line is combined for 200-something stars, 300-something appearances. It's like the most in the country. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, they can't perform at all. Darius Washington, preseason all ACC selection, he has taken a tremendous step back. It's insane. I mean, to see how poorly he has performed for Florida State this season. And, we haven't been informed if he's struggling with an injury or what, but something is not right there. And he just hasn't been able to get it together. Maurice Smith, and now looks like he's dealing with an injury, went down in that SMU game and then came back in. So we'll see how that goes. Keandre Jones and TJ Ferguson both went down in the loss to SMU. And now Richie Leonard, which we'll get to in a bit, he's out for the season after undergoing surgery. Jeremiah Byers missed the previous 3 games, returned for this one. FSU started Jalen early, and they replaced him with Jeremiah Byers, and then Byers got 2 holding penalties that negated first downs for FSU, one being I think a 28-yard gain for Lawrence Toafili. Robert Scott.
Scott.
Yeah, he's been injured for years. I mean, unfortunately. So
that's not.
I hate to say it, but yeah, he's just dealt with so many different things that he's had to try and overcome. And to see the state of this offensive line through just 5 games, I mean, it already feels like we're at the Florida game last year. Being held together by glue and duct tape at this point. And like Austin said, this is the most disappointing position group on the entire team because they're supposed to pave the way for this rushing attack. They're supposed to give DJ time to make these plays downfield. It's been horrendous. And, we hoped it might get better with Alex Atkins returning from that 3-game suspension, but it's been exactly the same, if not worse.
Yeah, just to give people some numbers as context. Obviously, Pro Football Focus is not the perfect measuring tool. But TJ Ferguson allowed 4 pressures and 5 pressure opportunities in 31 snaps. Jalen Early, Bryson Estes, and Keandre Jones all played exactly 18 snaps each, allowed 2 pressures. And then there's Bryson Estes, who outside of those 2 pressures had 6 pressure opportunities where the player could have made a play, but the ball got out of the quarterback got rid of the ball. Maurice Smith gave up 2 pressures and I think, 7 pressure opportunities. Like, this is just, it's ridiculous. There's no way this offensive line should be this bad.
And Bryson Estes is your co-starter this week.
Mm-hmm.
Whoop-de-doo. Can't wait.
Yeah, definitely with what is coming into town too on Saturday evening. Last kind of thoughts here on the SMU game. We knew that Florida State would lose this game. It's just the extra little bits now that are starting to become a snowball effect inside of what you think might be a problem inside the locker room and players not wanting to be out there on Saturdays. And that's a concern for me, just like y'all were bringing up the point there of Jeremiah not going and picking up his quarterback that, is supposed to now, and we'll discuss it right now about Brock Glenn, it's supposed to hopefully bring, some kind of new life to the team, and I don't think that is going to end up being the overall factor for Florida State if they're going to go out there and perform better. Brock Glenn was put into a really tough situation this last season, but where's the leadership now going to come from? And I think it would be great to get it from Brock Glenn. I don't think he's going to be the Jordan Travis on the field kind of leadership guy, but kind of right now they need someone vocally at that quarterback position. And DJ was never going to be that, and he sure as damn well wasn't going to be it during a really bad couple of performances and Florida State losing all of these games. But just some kind of fire there could really maybe help give some ignition to a team that just seems like now is dead at the moment, gentlemen. And I'm worried about the locker room more than anything, because then it's just like, you're just kind of getting to Saturdays. Because I think as a fan and someone that enjoys covering this team, you're kind of now just like, man, I kind of just want to get Saturday over with at this point. And if I'm feeling that way, I wonder how players would have
Only
to go
Saturday?
practicing. Yeah.
Only Saturday out of the way. I'm ready to get the whole season out the way.
I know that's been the past couple of years for FSU basketball for us on this show. But on here, though, for football, you're just like, these players have to go out there. They got to practice. They got to get hit. They're in classes. They have to deal with all this kind of stuff. If we're already feeling that way, I just wonder how they feel in the locker room. And there were some questions asked from the media about if Mike Norvell feels like the players have checked out, and he's going to be coaches speak and say, no, that's not the case, and these guys are still trying and whatnot. But I that's what I'm kind of concerned on moving forward. Definitely when you've got a very confident team with Dabo Swinney coming in town this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, leadership is something that Florida State is lacking. And I think I've said it a couple times since the season began, but that was probably an area that we overlooked a little bit going into this 2024 season, the lack of leadership. And, there were guys expected to step into these roles, and it seemed like they just thought, since they're in that position now, that makes them a leader. But, being a leader is something that you have to go out and do every single day, no matter if you're in a positive moment, if you're in a negative moment. So that's something that Florida State, they don't have a ton of at the moment. And especially when you think on the offensive side of the football, is there a singular voice that you can really point to player-wise? I don't think so at this point. So with Brock Glenn stepping in, he's definitely a little bit more vocal, I would say, than DJ out on the field, and not someone who's afraid to let his personality kind of shine out there. Plays with some moxie, and when he's making a big play, he's going to go down there and celebrate with the guys, whether that's him throwing the ball, handing the ball off, and the running back goes and makes a play. So, I think that's something you're going to see, that excitement, and, seeing your quarterback kind of reinforce that positivity. I think that can help Florida State. We'll get into exactly maybe what he can kind of help bring to this offense. But I do feel like with his knowledge, being here an extra year longer than DJ, and getting to watch Jordan Travis operate on and off the field a season ago, that can only be beneficial as Brock Glenn steps into another big moment for FSU.
I honestly don't think the leadership could get worse than what we saw from DJ. How many times do we see him, make a bad play and just walk to the sideline, stand by himself, and not say anything to anybody? So I honestly don't think it can get worse. And I think Brock Glenn, trying to prove himself as technically a redshirt freshman, I think he's going to at least try to be a leader. I don't know how well it'll resonate with this locker room right now, because it kind of seems like a mess, but I at least have faith that he will try. And I don't think DJ ever tried once to be a leader. Besides the Beats headphones, I'll give him that.
Those were cool. I think Mike is doing a really big disservice on getting Brock, and now you have to, because DJ's injured, but you're really doing a disservice to Brock Glenn here. I think it's going to, sadly, this game is not going to be close, and I think on what we're going to agree on our score predictions here at the end of the show, but I think it's a disservice he's going to have to go into this game once again in a pretty rough spot. Thank God he gets some preparation. He gets a little bit of a week to prepare for the game, but you should have done this weeks ago, Mike. You should have done this far and long ago, because now you're going to throw him out there. If the performance isn't great and there's mistakes, because there will be mistakes, there is going to be some times where things aren't going great, and there's going to be a 3-and-out, blah, blah, blah. Then you allow for the fan base to rip Brock Glenn to shreds, where it should be the other way around, where you're ripping Mike Norvell to shreds. This should have been happening weeks and weeks ago. You should have given the kid multiple times to get ready for the Clemson matchup, and not just wait and wait and wait and wait. So that's my take on it. I think this is one of Mike Norvell's worst things that he's done since arriving in Tallahassee, and it's going to show on Saturday, unless Brock Glenn shocks the world on us. There's going to be times where things don't look good from him, and it's all on the shoulders of what Mike did.
The crazy thing is, I don't see a situation Saturday where Norvell comes out a winner. Even if Florida State wins the game and Brock Glenn has a great game, everyone's going to be going, why didn't we see this all season? Why did we start 1-4 with DJ when Brock's doing this? And then if Brock sucks because he's had no time getting experience and getting the reps in practice, it's going to be, well, why wasn't he getting more reps? He needed these reps to be ready for moments like this. I really don't see a situation where Norvell comes out of this on top, at least this weekend.
It's just a tough scenario for Brock to get thrown into, right? It feels like he's been set up for failure ever since he arrived at Florida State. having to step into the reins for the ACC championship, not knowing if Tate Rodemaker would pass concussion protocol or not, stepping in there against a Louisville defense that was playing really good football at the time. And then we all know what happened with the Orange Bowl. Tate Rodemaker defecting at the last minute after taking some of those practice opportunities away from Brock, and Florida State already not having a ton of key pieces across either side of the ball. So, I mean, that was unfortunate. And then, like you guys have said, you've had these opportunities to get his feet wet early in the year, but now he's kind of being thrown to the wolves against, one of the tougher front sevens that FSU will face this season. And, you also have to think Clemson's coming in with a chip on their shoulder after the way things went last year. And we all know Dabo, whenever he has an opportunity to bury Florida State, let's think back to 2018, he's willing to take it. I mean, he sees a Florida State team. There's blood in the water right now. And I think Clemson is going to come out on Saturday night and try to do everything they can to, just pound FSU into the dirt.
A comment on here on YouTube talking about Brock, saying Brock has been here longer than DJU and couldn't win the job. You can't start him against lesser teams. You play when you were called upon. I'm tired of the we feel bad for Brock talk. I don't think anybody in here is feeling bad for Brock, and Brock also isn't feeling bad for himself. He's ready to take on this opportunity. And when we talked to him directly at the Orange Bowl, talking with him with the media, that he just got told that he was a starter just 3 days in advance, there was none of, I feel bad. I don't know what, I feel bad for me, that this sucks. He's continued to run into the fire, which I really like his mentality. And I've loved that since we saw that in the Florida game, whenever he's on the road in a hostile environment and the swamp. But, there was expectation that, yes, DJ was going to get the starting job. He's not transferring from Oregon State, leaving Oregon State to come all the way to Tallahassee to just be a backup there. This was a bridge gap year for where DJ was going to come in. And then you have the expectation of a battle between Brock Glenn and Luke Kromenhoek. There's the whole comment here. You can't start him against lesser teams. Hell yeah, you can. That's just a silly thing. That's a silly damn thing to say. That makes zero sense to me whatsoever.
We're ignoring the part where Brock Glenn was hurt for 6 weeks last year with the broken hand.
Yep.
So he wasn't able to practice then. And I don't know when he came into campus. Dustin, you might know off the top of your head if he was an early enrollee or something.
He was early, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. But either way, how just in general in college football, how often do you see a redshirt freshman start over a fifth-year quarterback? I don't care if he's been here longer by 8 months or whatever. No, it's a bad comment. Sorry. I wanted to say more, but no, I'll leave it at that.
The signs have kind of been there since the spring that Florida State was going to leash themselves to DJ. I mean, we know Brock and Luke, they kind of missed the final days there of the spring. But I mean, then when you got to the preseason, DJ, he was the guy taking the majority of those starting reps, and you never had Mike Norvell discuss any type of quarterback competition throughout the entirety of fall camp and the preseason. So, I mean, that kind of seemed like it was set in stone. But either way, I mean, Brock Glenn, with the struggles that DJ has had early in this year, I don't think that there was any point where, it would have been a bad thing to put Brock Glenn in there and see if he can provide any sort of spark. But he didn't get that chance. And now instead, his third start of his career is going to be his third start against a top 15 team. Louisville, number 14, Georgia, number 6, Clemson, number 15. And I mean, that's just asinine to me. I mean, like I said, that's setting a quarterback up for failure, because typically these younger guys, they get a chance to get their feet wet against some of the quote unquote easier teams. And, I know things haven't gone as Florida State expected early in this season, but, regardless, they are where they are.
I do kind of wonder if when Florida State brought in DJ, if they told him, we'll at least give you through to the Clemson game. We'll give you your revenge game, and then we'll reassess after that. That's the only reason I could, in my head, make sense of it.
Yeah, that's it now. That's all the kind of thing you can – that's it.
And now they've just put themselves in a deeper hole with him getting hurt, and you're throwing out Brock Glenn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a question on here. Why didn't Brock win the starting job? If you're, if you've been around and listened to this show, Dustin, a lot of the practice reports we put out, there was times where Brock would get time with the ones, and then DJ would get time with the ones. And then it started to be where there was a line put in the sand where DJ is the starter and this is how it is going to be. And there was no other kind of opportunities throughout the season so far where, you're seeing Brock get the chance to work with the ones and see if he is going to get better down the field than what you had with DJ and show better consistency offensively. So like we started off talking about this conversation, he gets a lot put onto his shoulders going into this game. We don't feel I know Brock doesn't feel bad for himself. He's ready to take on this opportunity. And no one's really feeling bad for him. I'm just pointing out the pressure that I think Mike has put onto Brock. And I hope he doesn't coach him in that way. I hope that he leads him and helps him grow as it should, because this is going to be a massive growing game in a lot of different ways with that awful offensive line. That's going to be another point there. You can say all you want about Brock and his performance this upcoming weekend. Skip back to this podcast about 8 minutes ago. Wow, we just talked about how brutally disgusting this offensive line has played to start this season. So have fun, and all the drops you're going to get from your tight end, your starting tight end, and whoever else is out there not going to be able to make plays as well. So I hope everybody, there's going to be some tweets about Brock Glenn and everything. Please do your homework. And
not there will be. There already has been some. People already trashing him before he's out there.
I know, trashing him and about practice and all this kind of stuff. It's just silly for engagement. And come on, get a grip, grow up. Let's jump into some more fun things here. We've already talked about DJ. He's gonna be out for a little while, is what it is. Shyheim Brown was arrested in early July, on July 4th weekend, due to a speeding and driving under the influence. He was going 117 miles per hour in a 70 mile per hour zone. This was first reported by warchant.com. He also had a 9mm handgun, which was found in the vehicle and turned over to deputies. Looked for comment from Florida State. He was disciplined for this. That's why we did not see him in the Memphis game, gentlemen. We talked about it on here whenever we were kind of doing our instant reaction. The Memphis game as such, didn't understand why he wasn't in the game, but now we know, and there's some internal things that are also going on inside of the locker room, and what's going on that Mike Norvell also has to deal with off the field at the moment.
Yeah, it's disappointing. It's disappointing. Shyheim Brown's supposed to be one of your biggest leaders on and off the field at Florida State, and it's an unfortunate mistake. And the report, it also kind of made it seem like Florida State wasn't made aware of this situation until last month, and that's why Shyheim was ultimately disciplined for the Memphis game instead of earlier in the season. But yeah, it's not something that you want to see. I believe that this might be the first player that has been arrested at Florida State since Mike Norvell took over as head coach. But got 2 court dates coming up on October 8th and October 11th to address the DUI charge and the speeding ticket. And we'll kind of see how that goes. But some of the stuff that came out in that report, just it didn't shine a good light on Shyheim Brown or Florida State.
I'm honestly surprised he only got 1 game. Granted, I feel like the Norvell we're seeing today is different than the Norvell we've seen the first 4 years. I feel like he would have gotten 2 or 3 games a few years ago. But I despise people who get DUIs. I think they're despicable. We saw what happened with the Goudreau brothers from a drunk driver, and I hate it, and it's a stupid thing to do, and especially given what his blood alcohol content was. It was pretty insane.
Yeah, Shyheim Brown was taken to the Jefferson County Jail, and he provided 2 breath samples. First one registered a blood alcohol content of 0.203.
Insane.
And the second one, 0.199, which is more than double the legal limit in the state of Florida. And, you're considering the speed that he was traveling at as well. It said, I don't know if you mentioned it, Logan, but it said they found a nearly completely empty bottle of tequila in the car. And he said he had taken 2 shots 2 hours ago. But, considering the blood alcohol content and stuff, we'll see what happens. Shyheim Brown, I believe his attorney has pleaded non-guilty to both of those charges. And like we said, he'll be in court actually next week during Florida State's bye week. And, I guess we kind of see what comes out of it, but maybe that's what Florida State is waiting on to make a further decision with punishment. But yeah, that news did surface last week, and Shyheim Brown started Saturday night against SMU.
Yep. Let's jump into some other news here. We mentioned on it earlier, but former Florida offensive line transfer Richie Leonard is out for the remainder of the 2024 season. He can actually redshirt since he only appeared in 4 games. Was actually the second highest rated offensive lineman behind Jalen Early. Significant loss here on the offensive line that we've already talked about heavily on in this show tonight, but definitely a loss there on your interior that Florida State is going to miss. And we'll see, like I said, he has a chance to get that injured, red shirt and can come back and see what happens there. But was showing some good signs and was able to give some sign of life there in that offensive line for Alex Atkins.
Yeah, just another drop in the bucket for this offensive line. In my opinion, I thought Richie Leonard was probably the top performing member of that rotation through the first 4 games, and started the first 3, came off the bench against Cal. It sucks because you haven't gotten a lot of success from those interior guys. Keandre Jones, TJ Ferguson have struggled pretty mightily when they've been in there. And like also noted, even when Bryson Estes came off the bench against SMU, it didn't get any better for the Seminoles up front. And now those are 3 of the 4 guys listed on your depth chart. I can't remember who's at which spot, but either way, Keandre and TJ Ferguson are at one of the guard positions, and then Bryson Estes and Andre Otto are co-starters with them. So, hey, we might be able to see some youth on Saturday night, getting Andre Otto in there. I think that could only be a positive for Florida State to see what he can bring in on a game day. And, it also depends because, like I said earlier in the show, TJ Ferguson, Keandre Jones both were banged up in that loss to SMU. And, it remains to be seen if either will be able to go.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't Richie Leonard the one that has a cousin that's committed to Florida State for next year?
I'm not sure, but I know he was high school teammates with Keziah.
I feel like there's someone on the offensive line who's a cousin with one of the offensive line.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. TJ Ferguson, his cousin is Peyton Joseph, 4-star offensive lineman.
So then never mind on that point. But yeah, I wouldn't be mad if Leonard decided he wanted to take that medical redshirt and come back. So like you said, I don't even think it's close. I thought he was very easily Florida State's best offensive lineman the first part of the season, and it's only going to get worse with him out, as crazy as that is to say.
Yeah. Let's jump into some depth chart stuff here, gentlemen, real quick. Obviously, Glenn named as the co-starter there with DJ being out now, but Landon Thomas and Brian Courtney now are co-starters with Kyle Murlock. Estes a co-starter with Keandre Jones at left guard, and now freshman offensive lineman Andre Otto co-starter with TJ Ferguson at right guard. So a lot of offensive line changes, like you were just alluding to, dealing with a lot of things and moving parts right now for Alex Atkins and that offensive line overall. With that also going on to our last quick hitter before we jump into some NFL Noles, Florida State lost a 4-star wide receiver, and Malik Clark from the 2025 class was a top 25 wide receiver there. I don't think it's too much of a shock that this kind of stuff is going to be happening, but yeah, definitely some promise there in that kid, and see what ends up happening there with his recruitment. But a loss there for Ron Dugans and that offense of and Mike Norvell.
Yep, the hits keep on coming for Florida State, and this is what happens when your season doesn't go very well, and you're recruiting some of the best high school prospects in the country, and some are some of the other powerful programs across the nation. But Florida State, now this is their 3rd decommitment since the season began. Malik Clark reopening things. You also had Javian Hilson decommit a couple of weeks ago, and Myron Charles flipped to Texas. So, a class that was already kind of small in numbers, Florida State sitting with just 11 verbal commitments at this point, and we're about 3 months away from the early signing period. It could just continue to kind of dwindle from here. And, it was always a little risky with the high school class this small. And, Florida State, they haven't given themselves a ton of, kind of B, C, and D options elsewhere whenever these guys are hopping off the boat, if you will. So we'll just kind of see what happens. I know there have been some offers that have went out recently to guys along the defensive line in that 2025 class. But, again, most of the talented recruits around the country who are going to sign in December have found their homes by now. And, who realistically is Florida State going to be able to flip, considering the season that they're having right now? You've got some uncertainty surrounding assistant coaches, like who is going to be here after the year if changes are made to that Florida State coaching staff. So it's just kind of hard to see them, having a ton of success with this 2025 class. And you got to hope that you can cling to the guys that are still on board and lock them down. But, if this season continues to go down the drain, I think Florida State, they're going to continue to lose high school commitments. And I don't know how they're going to get any more from here. So it's looking like, once again, FSU is going to have to heavily dip into the portal to fill out its roster.
Let's get to some fun things, gentlemen.
Yeah, fun.
Let's get into some fun things. Let's get into some good things. That was about full hour of depression and sadness and anger and whatever it was, whatnot. But we're still smiling here, and that's because Braden Fisk got his first NFL sack against a former number one overall pick, Caleb Williams, in their battle against the Chicago Bears. I didn't get to see it, but just saw
strip sack.
Strip sack. Okay. All right.
He bullied the left guard and knocked the ball away from Caleb Williams. I don't remember if he recovered, but strip sack.
I don't think he recovered. I think
he did last weekend.
I think Chicago got back on it, but it was a funny looking sack because he didn't even get Caleb Williams on the ground.
Yeah.
He just got to smack the ball out.
Yeah,
I guess that counts.
Whatever works.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take it.
100%. And then some news out of Tampa. Kalen DeLoach has signed with the Bucs practice squad there. So that's some awesome stuff. Wish I could have been there earlier this week to see him out there, but we'll make sure to get with him and maybe get a talk with him and see how things are going there. He's recovering from an injury too that happened during the preseason for the Bucs. But Todd Bowles and that coaching staff see a lot in him, along with also Levante David, KJ Britt, a lot of those guys that are some vets there in the linebacker room for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But a good sign there that he's came back fully recovered and has a chance to, if need be, get pulled up and such. But he's got a great room that he's in to get some good leadership around him. And then one more thing I wanted to mention too, Jared Verse has just been a menace for offensive tackle so far to begin his NFL career. If he could finish up some of these plays, man, he'd be almost leading the league in some of these sacks. But right now, he's one of the top 5 edge rushers in PFF's pass rush win rate entering week 5. Aiden Hutchinson, absolute dog for the Detroit Lions. And then number 2, there is Jared Verse at 29%. Number 3, Myles Garrett at 28%. So, and some very damn good company for some edge rushers that know what they're doing.
Yeah, love to see it. A trio of Hear the Spear alums having some success out there. Braden Fisk and Jared Verse getting after it in LA. Both of them having really good starts to their rookie years. And then Kalen DeLoach making it back with the Bucs. Love to see that for him, because ultimately it seemed like he did pretty well in training camp. Didn't maybe perform as well in some of those preseason games, but was also limited by that groin injury. And then now back with Tampa Bay's practice squad, hopefully he can just kind of ramp back up and, eventually get promoted to the 53-man roster for the Buccaneers.
And the crazy thing about Jared Verse's pass rush win rate against the Bears, I believe it was 50%. He was just absolutely dominating them. And like Logan mentioned, he's got to finish some of those plays off. I think he has one of the highest missed tackle rates in the NFL as well. But for a rookie to get in the backfield this consistently, it's a good sign moving forward. He'll make those plays sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I don't know if Logan has anything else NFL-wise, but the only thing that I can really think of is, I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but Philadelphia, played Tampa Bay on Sunday, came up short. And one thing that surfaced during the game is that Johnny Wilson, what is that man doing? Should have muted.
Yeah,
Muted your mic, Logan.
he
I
can't,
don't even know.
I don't know what happened.
It's really loud. That's what's happening. But during the course of that Philadelphia loss, Eagles put out that Johnny Wilson was being evaluated for a concussion. And I mean, that's pretty notable because as we all remember, last year at Florida State, he suffered 2 concussions and what would seem like a 3-week span there in October. I think the first one came against Virginia Tech. He was out the following week. And then he suffered another one in that eventual win against Duke. And then now he's gotten to the NFL, drafted by the Eagles. And earlier this preseason, it popped up that he was dealing with a concussion. So it seems like this is a recurring issue for Johnny Wilson at this point. And, you just hate to see it with the head injuries. And sometimes that's just something that guys cannot get over for one reason or another. And, hoping Johnny can bounce back from this.
Yeah, definitely with the stuff that you're seeing with Tua and what he's having to deal with.
Yeah.
Those reoccurring things like that, it's very scary. And hopefully things can get better for him because he is definitely a special playmaker. And the Philadelphia Eagles do need some playmakers at the wide receiver position with some of the hits that they've been taking throughout the start of this 2024 season. But yeah, let's jump into this game, guys, before it's too late. Florida State versus Clemson, top 15 team coming into the. Are you just laughing because of the matchup?
Just laughing at the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I did not have to go poop. I had to go to the bathroom to go get my AirPods that were in my shorts that for some reason somehow connected to StreamYard. I don't know how that even happened. I don't even know how that's possible. But here we are. Welcome to the team. I had a quick response. I went through adversity in a matter of like 1 minute, fixed it. And look, I have a response and we're ready to keep on going to show something that Florida State football needs to do more often. But yeah, Clemson's coming into this game 3-1. Their only loss was to Georgia, their season opener there. But this team seems to start clicking here for Dabo Swinney. And like Dustin was saying earlier, that's what I'm kind of worried about. Dabo's coming in here smelling blood, and he does not mind putting on a clinic inside Doak Campbell Stadium and putting up a lot of points. What are y'all's first thoughts going into this one? My number one is Brock Glenn versus Clemson's defense, and specifically that front seven, what he's going to have to be asked to do and deal with. But it's going to have to be a master plan from what Mike Norvell needs to build around this quarterback and utilize his legs where you never had any legs with DJ. If you want to sustain drives in this game, you got to utilize him, and that makes some things a little bit more simple starting off. Build a rhythm, get his arm going, I think, earlier in the game rather than later. But interested to get y'all's first thoughts on this, gentlemen.
Yeah, this is no easy matchup for Florida State. And, we all know that streak. Florida State hasn't scored over 21 points, and they haven't broken that 20-point mark since the season opener against Georgia Tech. This is definitely a game where if Florida State is going to have any chance to win, they're going to have to put some points on the scoreboard, and they're going to have to snap that streak for sure to defeat Clemson. And, you look at the Tigers statistically, they don't really jump off the page at you on defense, allowing over 400 yards a game, nearly 200 yards on the ground. So, I mean, it does seem like maybe there's a chance that Florida State can find a little bit of offensive success. But ultimately, as we've kind of hinted throughout the show, it's going to come down to this offensive line because Clemson, they do have a talented front seven, a couple of really good linebackers, and, that front five. And whoever gets rotated in there in the second drive, they're going to have to hold up for Florida State throughout this game if Brock Glenn is going to have any chance of getting that ball out to his playmakers. And, it's important to note Clemson has not surrendered a point in the first quarter this season. So if Florida State is going to have a shot of pulling off an upset here, they're going to have to score early and often as well, more than two times. And then you go over to the other side of the ball, and, it seems like Clemson starting to figure some things out. They had some offensive woes last year. Cade Klubnik wasn't quite living up to the expectations that the Tigers, Dabo Swinney, and, new offensive coordinator expected. And you move over to this season, Klubnik completing a career high in passes, I believe 2 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, got the lowest interception rate of his career, the highest yards per attempt average of his career coming into this game. And Clemson, they've got some other pieces. That tight end, Jake Briningstool, still there. somehow at this point. And Phil Maffa, we all remember him, gave Florida State a heck of a game last year in Death Valley. And, it seemed like after that run in the third quarter, Clemson knocking on the door there to kind of end Florida State's chances. And then Kalen DeLoach made that huge critical play, the play of the season for FSU. But, it's going to be a battle for sure. Florida State, they're going to have to come out prepared for this one because Clemson, they're going to want to punch them in the mouth after the way last year went.
Yeah, Phil Maffa is averaging 8 yards per carry, which is just scary. I don't know if anyone saw my face when we first started this segment, but the first thing I saw was Phil Maffa at 8 yards per carry. I went, oh my God. But even like Cade Klubnik's had some really long touchdown runs the last couple of weeks. You mentioned his progression as a passer, but I feel like his progression as a runner has really what's opened this offense up a little bit. And they're averaging 6 yards per carry as a team. And that's including the Georgia game where they average just 2 yards per carry. So they're running the football really, really well right now. But on the flip side, you can weirdly run on Clemson. When you think of playing Clemson, you're thinking of a very stout front seven, and they usually do. But Stanford gave them 236 rushing yards. NC State 179. App State 149. Even if you exclude the Georgia game, who's as talented as anybody is in the country, they're still allowing over 5 yards per carry. And that's a little odd for a Clemson team. And hopefully Florida State can finally get the run game going because they are generating some turnovers. Their last 3 games, they've picked off 6 passes, also forced or recovered 3 fumbles as well. So 9 total turnovers in the last 3 games forced by this defense. I don't think this is a game Florida State's going to even have a chance if they come out saying, hey, Brock Glenn, go through the ball 50 times for us. This is going to have to be one of those games where Lawrence Toafili's rushing for 100 to $150. Cam Davis is getting involved. Even Brock Glenn using his legs and then keeping Glenn's attempts down in the 20 to 25 range at most. That's going to be the only way they even give themselves a chance. But Clemson's rushing attack is probably going to run all over Florida State's defense because they have not been a good rushing defense for the most part.
And to your point, I mean, turnover luck is a big part in a team pulling off a potential upset, and Florida State's defense just hasn't been able to take the ball away from opposing teams very often this year. Just 2 interceptions on the season, that one by Justin Cryer against Memphis, and then you had Edwin Joseph getting that pick against Cal. Florida State, 1 fumble recovered this season, and that actually came on a punt against SMU. So really just 2 turnovers that the defense has forced through 5 games. And then on the opposing side, Florida State has already turned it over 8 times this season, 6 interceptions, 2 fumbles, one of those fumbles being on a punt. So 7 turnovers for the offense. They need to flip that in the opposite direction if they're going to have any chance on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm. Let's jump into some best bets, gentlemen.
Here we go.
Now we're talking. It's gonna be fun.
I can't believe the spread hasn't moved. If
touchdown score props are back.
We're back, baby.
Oh, let's go.
We're so back, gentlemen. By the way, we went 2-1 last week. We're kind of in that little trend here. We got the FSU under a total points at 20.5. Yeah,
we did not have SMU.
We had SMU spread at 6.5. We definitely nailed that, but then the under on the total points at 48.
Yeah, I didn't see 42 points coming. That's on me, fellas. My bad.
I think we went to the barbershop too, and
I told you I wanted to go over.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all right.
That one's on me.
Here. You're gonna make it up here. This week. So here we got right now. The spread right now is Clemson 14.5.
I'm hammering Clemson covering.
All right.
We don't have to go any further.
Now, right off the bat, just lock it in there. I'm just going to say right now the over-under is at 47.5. Everybody put your picks into the chat too. While we build, we need to go 3-0 or whatever we're going to do, 4-0, 5-0, whatever we end up picking here. But are we going to go with some spread here on Clemson? Start off, make some people some money.
Gives away the score predictions, but I think everyone knows how this one's going. So.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and throw that in there for right now.
I hate to say it, but we call that free money.
Yeah,
that is what they call free money on here. We are not legal to give you sports betting advice. Just putting it out there. We don't have a sponsorship, so we don't have to really say that in right now until we do. Do we want to do anything on this over/under on the total
I think
points?
I think it's over personally.
I think it is too. I don't love it,
Yeah.
but I think it gets over.
I believe it's over too. We're at plus 220 at the moment, gentlemen, on our two-legger. Let's go do some touchdown scores. Right now, they have Maffa at the top. Anytime touchdown scorer at minus 185. Lawrence to Philly minus 110, and Antonio Williams at plus 135. Not a lot of FSU players outside of Lawrence to Philly, gentlemen, until Cam Davis at plus 240.
I will say this: Phil Maffa only has 2 rushing touchdowns, or just 2 touchdowns from scrimmage on the year. I don't hate Cade Klubnik plus 150 though, as an anytime touchdown scorer on the ground.
Add some big cash onto the parlay. Get that plus jumped up, give it some juice.
Are there any FSU players on here?
It's Cam Davis and
there's Malik Benson somewhere in there at like plus 400, I think it was.
Brock Glenn's down here at plus 1. I kind of want to hit that. I don't know what it is that I'm feeling. If they're able to get down there in 2, but you only get 2 probably situations of Florida State getting down 2.
Yeah, I feel like if they get there, they're going to give Philly a wildcat touch. That's a big hit
for that. Yeah, I was going to say I've been asking for that for weeks.
Are you sure they're not going to run the quarterback just right up the middle again?
No.
Shame on you for offering creativity, Austin. Shame on you.
I saw enough creativity last week.
What's Ja'Kai Douglas at?
He's up here, down here at plus 430.
Hakeem at plus 480.
Ja'Kai's got 2 touchdowns.
I was going to say that was on my notes from the game. I loved the routes that he was running against SMU. That he was trying, man. That was a beautiful end dig, come back to the ball. That was a gorgeous route.
Yeah.
Shout him out.
No, that's a guy I feel like still pushing really hard right now for FSU.
Yeah, he's wide receiver 1 to me. Any touchdown scores we want to grab in here, or do we want to just wait a second?
Clemson defense at plus 500. Hold on a second.
That's it.
That's what I said.
Isn't that crazy? I'll go. I would
say Klubnik.
I'd go with Klubnik. Yeah.
Okay, Klubnik. Anytime. Now,
I almost want to put Maffa on there too, but
Maffa's only got 2. You would assume he'd get 1.
I think he has 2 on Saturday.
Let's see something.
And then Antonio Williams and Jake Bryden still each have 3 touchdowns on the year, so one of them maybe not be the worst options, but one touchdown score may be enough. Is there? Do we have we have the drives back. Give me Florida State punt first drive. Let me see it.
Okay. Now watch. Come on, Brooklyn touchdown first drive. All right, we'll put punt in there. We'll put punt.
Punt's minus 155.
It's actually not like awful if you can add it with a parlay like this. Minus 165. Right now we have Clemson minus 14.5, over 47.5 on the total points. Cade Klubnik anytime touchdown score and punt on the first drive result for Florida State. Anything else we'd like to add in here?
What are those Russian props looking like?
Lawrence to Philly expected over.
I've got Klubnik over 22.
Oh, very easily over 42.
22.
Sorry, yeah. Sorry, 22. Yep.
42, I might be like, I don't know, but 22,
that's a steal.
Yeah, because his last 2 games, 48 yards against Stanford and 70 against NC State. Only 5 against App State, though. Maffa, I think I actually like the Maffa over better at 85.
They blew out App State, though. Like,
you could alternate. We could go to the barbershop and cut down and go to Maffa.
No, I kind of like Maffa at his current 85. I like that over. I think he goes.
But we've got so many on this parlay. Like, don't you?
I would honestly take Klubnik off and have Maffa over
on the 85.5.
Because I think Maffa goes for like $120.
Yeah, but you did steer us in the wrong direction last week.
Yeah, it's true, but I'm trying to make up for it. I'm trying to make up for it.
Yeah, all right. I'm down to erase this one. I feel better on this one. So, since we're not going to do Brockland, I think Brockland
erasing the Klubnik touchdown. Ooh, interesting.
Well, then we're going to have 6 legs.
Or we could do that. I don't hate it.
do we want to shave any of this total? But we feel really comfortable at 47.5 on the
Yeah,
over.
that should be fine.
It gets over with my score prediction.
Same.
Okay. So we lock this one in then.
A 6-legger.
Put 10 grand on that and pay your mortgage.
Yeah. Go ahead and screenshot that. Keep that for next week. Bang. All right. Let's see what happens. But yeah, that's FSU versus Clemson. Best bets. All right. Let's jump into some score predictions, gentlemen. I think I went first.
And that was me last week, so it's Delu.
It's up to Delu now.
Yeah, I guess it's
Delu
back
time.
to me.
Yes, sir. Sure is. Go right ahead.
Well, I'm just going to be honest with you guys.
No way.
I don't think this one is going to be a very pretty game for Florida State.
What?
You know, everything's been going in the wrong direction for the Seminoles. Clemson is playing some really good football at the moment. And like I've said throughout the show, Dabo never wastes an opportunity to bury Florida State any chance that he's got. And this is also a little bit of an interesting game because Dabo Swinney has the chance to break the record for most ACC victories by most victories by an ACC head coach, like conference wins. He's currently tied with Bobby Bowden.
Wow.
So now he can come break that record on Bobby Bowden Field. And unfortunately, I think that Clemson, they're going to handle Florida State in this one. Hopefully the bye week can start to get things going back in the right direction. But I've got the Tigers 40. I've got the Seminoles 10, Florida State 1-5.
I'm not very far off, I'll be honest, but I think I'm last this week. So go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go in. Don't have to add much more than what Dustin was saying there. I think, Brock Glenn's going to get put in the situation that I didn't want all year long after what we saw with DJ and what we were going to get out of him. It's going to get ugly. It's not going to be fun. 2018 vibes, sadly. I'm going to go even further, though. I think it's going to be Clemson 44, FSU 13. They allow Ryan Fitzgerald to kick one.
Will they? That'd be a surprise.
Yeah, that would be a change.
We get to see Florida State's best player hit a friggin' bomb at like 55, I do believe. But I
haven't seen him since September.
Don't know where he's at. Don't know where he went. I'm sure he would love to get out there and utilize his talents, but I think Mike's going to go ahead and do it. But I would like to see, it is going to be interesting to just watch Brock Glenn and him out there with the vocal vibe. I'm not expecting him to be an absolute game changer for Florida State, and I don't think any FSU fan should expect it, nor there shouldn't be any kind of expectation for that, but just a little bit more juice there, I think, could be helpful. But this offensive line is horrid, and I don't like the situation he's being put in, and this is what it is. But this is all on Mike Norvell's shoulders, so can't do anything about it. But this kid is going to jump into that fire and run right at it, and I think fans should like that attitude. We haven't seen that attitude from a quarterback since Jordan Travis was here.
So I'll be honest. I think the reason Florida State sucks this year is because I broke a ukulele on stream 2 years ago, and now Uiagalelei was Florida State's quarterback the first 5 games. So I wish I could sit here today and tell you I wanted Uiagalelei to be the quarterback for Florida State on Saturday so I could break another ukulele and break the curse. I wanted it to happen, but unfortunately that's just not the case. Uiagalelei is not playing. It's not going to change anything. I've got Clemson winning 38-13, but instead of Ryan Fitzgerald field goals getting in 13, Norvell is going to go for 2 and not get it on one of these.
Can you just break Can you just break it anyway so we have something to smile about?
But he's not playing.
Can't do anything for reason, I guess, anymore.
Release the curse, release us.
If you want to pull the clip up from 2 years ago, that'd be fine with me. But once I saw he was out for the game, I didn't bother getting another one on Amazon. I'm sorry.
Damn it. God dang it. We need to put that.
You got something else you can break in there?
No, I don't think so. Nothing that I'd be willing to break.
Yeah. We'll have it. We'll replay that clip, I'm sure, sometime before the season's over. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Still a lot of thoughts and prayers. Everybody too also in Florida that were affected by the storm. I got friends that literally lost some of their homes here in the St. Pete area. And I know everybody in Florida and all these states, this was a nasty storm that came through. So I know a lot of recovery. We talk about football and everything. This is all for kind of distraction and entertainment at the end of the day. But there's a lot more serious things when it comes down to it. I know a lot of y'all are still recovering and affected by this. So wishing you all the very best. If you're traveling over to Tallahassee, please safe travels over there. Try to enjoy it, and we'll see what ends up happening there. But got a new quarterback that's going out there, and we'll just see what ends up happening. But yeah, appreciate everybody hanging out with us this evening. As always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, before you leave, hit that like button. It helps go out to more FSU fans to get them here in the comments with us. And we deeply appreciate you for supporting us and hanging out with us for all these shows with how the season's going. We still enjoy coming on here and hanging out with you, and sometimes with Dustin here and there, but we still really do like coming on here and giving you guys a show. But yeah, have a great rest of y'all's week, and we'll talk to you guys for our instant reaction late Saturday evening, if not early Sunday morning. Peace.